Hey Dee, Happy New Year. How was your Christmas? And do we remember how to do a podcast since we skipped last week?
I hope we do. My Christmas was great. I enjoyed my 2 weeks off, and I put quotes around off because, all of us work pretty hard to put on Christmas.
Yeah.
But, it was great. We were really cold. Really cold. And then we got really warm.
Ditto. Weather whiplash. It was like -8 on Christmas Eve. And the priest at church, the church was 3/4 full. It was one of those early masses. And he says, we didn't know if anybody would show up. And I just thought to myself, it's the same people who make this their traditional Christmas Eve mass every year.
Right. We went on Christmas Day and it was frigid. But you know what? Then it got better and then we got some rain.
Yep. Same here. I don't know how much though, because I took my rain gauge down back in November because I didn't want it to freeze. I thought I could put it back up for a few days, but I didn't. I'm lazy that way.
You're not lazy.
Well, let's get started with our first episode of 2023. Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana, where I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about 1/3 of an acre.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden on 7.5 acres out in the country, and it seems like too many, but that's okay.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening, and we want others to love it too.
Yes, we do, and we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and often the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Good morning, Carol. We're recording on a Tuesday.
Hello, Dee. How does thou garden grow?
My garden grows fine. One thing I forgot to put in my update is that because of the cold weather, I had a sprinkler line break, which has never happened since I've had a sprinkler. And, we don't blow out our sprinklers in Oklahoma because we don't usually get down to 1 degree for a long period of time. But
that'll freeze it.
Anyway, we got to get that fixed. We called the sprinkler company on this one because it is kind of under the driveway and they may have to bore under the driveway and put in a new line. So I'll keep people updated on how that goes. In other news, I've been putting all of my seeds in their storage envelopes so I can see them. And I switched systems. I ran to Walmart and bought a 3-ring binder that has a zipper so nothing falls out. And I changed the style of the envelopes, which are actually photo envelopes, photo deals, because then I can see them. But these open from the top, so that when I flip the page, the seeds don't fall out. And I did a little thing on Instagram about that. In the process, I realized I didn't order any tomato seeds. I only had the seeds that people sent me. And I was like, how is that possible? So I did order a few tomato seeds yesterday. And then I got a notice that Select Seeds had Verbena Bampton. Have you ever heard of Verbena Bampton?
No, but they sent me an email because they have the Salvia Van Hootii in stock.
Which is beautiful. It's that beautiful dark red salvia. So verbena, it's a Verbena bonariensis type flower. I think the species is slightly different, but I didn't look it up. Bampton is named after a town in England, and Leonie, our friend Leonie DeMerchant, she and I saw Bampton all over the Cotswolds, and we were like, we must have this. The only place I've seen it for sale in the United States is Select Seeds, and they were out. But guess what? They had it back in. And guess who I immediately texted?
Leonie.
Yes, and she bought some. So, and
now I got to buy some. I got to buy some.
You got to buy some because it's really beautiful. And you need to hurry up before this podcast airs because somebody else will want to buy some. See my plant?
I see your plant.
So I bought a new plant at Walmart when I was there getting my seed stuff because, of course, I did, right?
Exactly.
Costa Farms has a new thing called Plants with Benefits, but they don't ID any of the plants. And most of the plants I know what they are, but this one I didn't. So I had to do some work and some searching. It is a Birkin philodendron, which is one of those upright philodendrons.
Right.
It's a pretty little thing, isn't it?
It is a pretty little thing. What about
How much
that?
do you think? Go ahead.
Well, you have written down that you paid $15.97.
I'm very proud of myself because online, this is a $50, $60 plant. It's like that other crazy plant I had.
And
the one
probably
I melted.
Smaller online.
It probably is. So I love the people at Costa Farms and we deal with them quite often, but they haven't like sent me anything free in a while, mostly because I haven't asked. But I'm going to just give them a plug. These are wonderful plants. They're super healthy. There's all different kinds. There's Aglaonemas in there.
Nice.
Yeah. There's red Aglaonemas. And so, I don't get anything from Walmart, but if you can get a plant that's healthy, that's been brought right in, nothing's killing it, go get thee to a Walmart and buy yourself a plant if you want one. It's a nice thing to ring in the new year. Now, your turn. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to tell you that the Aglaonema that I bought for my great niece, I delivered it to her house once the weather warmed up. And, this is an old house that they remodeled. I mean, it's built in the late 1800s. And, oh my gosh, they have a sunroom on the back now with south, east, and west windows. Oh. And I am so jealous. Jealous. Yeah. And in the kitchen, in the corner of the kitchen, there's a east window and a south window. She's like, well, I think maybe I'll put a lemon tree here. I'm like, there are so many things we could grow here. Oh. But anyway,
yeah, that would be hard. But I would be so jealous. But you know what? That was a nice thing you did, getting her that plant. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, hopefully, and I got a little watering can to go with it. So they still have some remodeling work to do. It's not completely done, but they're back in. And those windows, I am, as they say, all kinds of jealous about them.
Yeah, I bet. So what else is going on?
Well, I got a bunch of seed samples from All American Selections, and I know you did too. And
we did.
My seeds are not organized in a binder with top pockets or anything like that. They're laying in baskets and piles on the sunroom table and need to be organized. So
you're the one who's usually organized. It's not usually me.
Well, they're kind of like in, I guess, loose files, like baskets where you could just ruffle through them. So they're not like piled.
I used to do that too. And then I don't know, one day I just couldn't keep up with it all. So I put them in those see-through pockets. I have nothing against like the seed keeper people. Well, we can talk about this more next week.
We can. Ask me about my African blue basil.
Okay. Tell me about your African blue basil. How's it doing?
Well, I started like 6 or 7 cuttings, and then I potted up 6, and then all but one died because I sort of forgot to water them.
Yeah.
So the one that's left has been getting excellent attention and has actually grown quite a bit that I might take some more cuttings off of it.
I was going to say,
those,
I think.
And keep going and rooting. And by the time we're frost free, I would hopefully have 1 or 2 plants to put outside.
I bet you will. I bet you'll have 3. I predict 3 plants to put outside.
That would be a good number. And then, so I had these tags of leftover from the bulbs, and I'd put them on a shelf in the garage. Another day, they're on the floor, and I'm like, how'd those get on the floor? I'd open the garage door to feed the birds. Mm-hmm. And then I realized it's because I have mice in my garage.
Yeah, mices. I hate mices to pieces.
Today, I have 1 less mouse in my garage.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
We have been finding mice in our garage, and actually I have 1 in the house, and this gives us a chance to talk about the kitten.
Yes. We cannot stop this. We cannot publish a podcast now without an update of your new kitty. Quite the hit with our listeners. Quite the hit. Masha?
Masha. It means Mary in English, but it's in Russian. Masha has reached the feisty kitty stage and also wants to be held all the time. She's practicing to become a great mouser. She's not there yet. And I have 1 very small mouse in my house, which is why I also put my seeds in my pantry. Yes. Instead of in my closet. I have a broom closet, and I get mice in there sometimes. And they will eat everything. Remember the time I had a rat that came in? Because I live in the country, people. I'm not really a bad housekeeper. I had a rat come in that closet, and I knew that because it ate an entire hyacinth bulb that I had in there. I was forcing.
That's horrible.
Yeah. That was disgusting and gross, and I didn't know anything would eat a hyacinth bulb. Anyway, she is practicing to be a great mouser, and she will be one, and it'll be great.
That is lovely. So we'll have to have weekly, minute with Masha on the book.
Minute with Masha. I love it.
All right. Well, I'm going to do a quote and get us started on our actual topics.
Yeah.
I pray this winter be gentle and kind, a season of rest from the wheel of the mind. John Geddes. I like that.
I do too. I like that a lot. So our flowers, we're going to talk about the year of 2023, designated by the National Garden Bureau, who we love. Let's first talk about the National Garden Bureau. You put some information up here about them. I love them.
Yes. And so the National Garden Bureau's motto is inspire, connect, and grow. And they're a nonprofit that exists to educate, inspire, and motivate people to increase the use of garden seeds, plants, and products in homes, gardens, and workplaces. So they are the marketing arm of the gardening industry. But again, they're not profit organization. They have many people on their board of directors. I looked at it the other day that come from all fields of horticulture, and they get their information directly from the sources. Every year they pick a bulb, a perennial, an annual, a shrub, and a vegetable, and most recently a houseplant to feature in the coming year. So can you do a drum roll, D, for 2023?
That's the best I got.
I didn't hear a drum roll.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, there won't be a drum roll. Drum roll for 2023. Go.
So first up, I guess this is the houseplant. It is the year of the orchid.
And I assume they mean Phalaenopsis, right? The traditional plain orchid.
Well, that's the one they show, but if you get into orchids, there are so many orchids. It's the largest plant family.
I like orchids. I didn't at one time, but you know what? Orchids are great in the winter, especially when your other houseplants, that you've been growing throughout December are kind of done blooming and stuff. Bring in an orchid. It'll put you in a good mood.
And then next up, the bulb is Year of the Amaryllis. How are your
Which is my
amaryllises?
favorite tropical bulb. Hands down.
Well, I'm going to say that I don't know of very many other tropical bulbs that flower, so I'm going to go with amaryllis too.
Well, I mean, remember when we were talking about Christmas plants and you did that whole article on, I can't think of what they're called right now, but the ones with the leaves, heart-shaped leaves, and they were touting them as Christmas plants this year, but most people grow them in their gardens. Thank you. I never can pull the word caladium out of my head until I've heard it once in a day. So caladiums are a good bulb that is tropical. I don't
know if they're an actual bulb or if they're a root. But anyway, the amaryllis, I've got one.
Or corm. Who knows?
I gave my annual waxed amaryllis to my great nieces and great nephew. And so hopefully those are all growing. I have one that our good friend Katie Elser-Peters' organization, Garden of Words, sent. And I tossed the container and the potting soil. And I have a big fat vase with rocks in the bottom. And I just set that on there and put some water in the bottom, and
it's doing great, right?
It's doing great.
Mine is growing too. I put it in a different vase and just put it in a pretty pot that's blue and white. And actually, I can take a picture for our newsletter this week of my amaryllis because most of them are blooming now, if you want me to.
Sure, that would be great. That would fit in with our theme.
So the perennial for the year is another favorite of mine. It is Rudbeckia, excluding, in my case, Goldsturm. As everyone knows, Goldsturm makes me crazy. But all the other Rudbeckias, in fact, I have some Cherokee Sunset mix that I am going to sow of the fuzzy leafed ones.
Uh-huh.
And I will put it outside this year because I like Rudbeckias. I think they're pretty. And they are great pollinator plants. And I just don't know what else to say. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. The Rudbeckia group is huge. Rudbeckia hirta especially.
And I'm trying to get some Rudbeckias to take hold out here by my bird feeder, but all the crap from that feeder drops down there. So we shall see. But that is a good one. And it has to have that little asterisk that says, except for Goldsturm.
Yeah, because Goldsturm has those underground roots, which make me crazy. So I couldn't think of the word shrub. I am tired today. The shrubs are spirea, and I love spireas. My favorite spirea is Ogon, but I also like, and I didn't look it up to be sure, but I think it's called jelly beans. And it's a great one too. It stays short. It's a really short one.
There are tons of good spirea. And I
Tons.
remember when I was in college back in the day, which is a long day ago, the one that everybody talked about was Spirea bumaldi, which is more of a species, but it stayed small, had pink flowers, and is probably the parent of a lot of the spirea that we have today.
Probably so. And when I got into gardening, the big one that was around was Anthony Waterer. And I have two Anthony Waterers that are really pretty in the spot that they grow. They were some of the very first plants I put in after I turned that portion of the back garden into more of a perennial garden. They stayed in the same spot for 30 years and they look great. Now, I'm going to give a caveat about spirea. A lot of the native plant enthusiasts really hate them because they bloom a little bit early, and their theory is it's not good for the insects or the birds. I'm not there with them on spireas. I like them, except for bridal veil. I probably wouldn't grow bridal veil. It's beautiful, but it can be invasive, and also it's aggressive. I like the ones that aren't aggressive, the newer ones.
So there are three good things about spirea in my mind. Flowers.
Flowers.
Many of them have very nice fall foliage.
Yep.
And if you want to keep them small or they've just gotten kind of big and rangy, whack them back in the spring before they come out and they'll just grow up from the roots again. Brand new shrubs.
I'll add number 4, complete easy care. There couldn't be an easier care shrub in your arsenal, except for maybe Nandina, and we can talk about those later too.
But,
Next.
well, I have one more story to tell. My grandmother's house up in Indianapolis, she had what I was later to determine was Spirea van Hootii growing in front of her porch. Mm-hmm. And as my woody ornamentals professor used to say, a nice shrub for about 2 weeks and then blah.
Right. The newer ones do so much better.
They do.
And also, one more caveat about them. In Great Britain, some of the spireas, some of the old ones, and it might be Van Hootii, I don't know. They're old, and boy, they have taken over their forests. They are a huge problem over there. So, but they're not, the new ones aren't a problem here, other than if you're just a native plant person. So the last one, what is that? What section is that one?
That is the year of the annual.
Oh, of course it is. Celosia.
Yes, the lovely, lovely celosia, which I'm going to link. I actually wrote an article about how to grow celosia for Family Handyman. I'm trying to find it, but I'll put a link there because there are three types of celosia identified for this article. Because, when you write these articles, off the tip of your tongue, you can't just like spout all your facts. So you gotta go looking. And so, celosia, I found out there's a lot more pretty celosia than you would imagine.
Right.
But again, and we'll talk about this some next week, seeds are the way to go. So there's the plumosa group, which is like a plume on top.
Right.
And then the cristata group, which is the coxcomb type. Mm-hmm. And then there's the spicata group, which some people call wheat celosia, like flamingo feathers.
Yes, which I love flamingo feathers. It's one of my favorite celosias.
So we'll link to that article.
Neon is part of that group, and it's a beautiful, I'm looking at it right now. It's a beautiful hot, hot pink. And one year I grew it, and it grew really, so one year I grew celosia, and some of the seeds fell to the ground, as they do.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Because
that can be a problem.
It can be, but I mean, they're not hard to dig out, so it's not like it's a real problem. So the next year, my garden was on tour, and these celosias had grown up, and they were 5 feet tall. They were huge.
Oh, yeah. Some of them are big.
People were like, what is that plant? Where did you get those seeds? Blah, blah. And I was like, they did it all by themselves. And they were purple and pink. They were really pretty. So I thought that was funny.
That's the annual. So now we're going to give ourselves the power, Dee. We're going to make a year of for ourselves. So you're going to have a year of
Oh, I have to come up with it off the top of my head right
Well,
now.
no, you wrote it in the
I
show
wrote it
notes.
down. See, we haven't looked at our notes in almost a week, except for a few minutes here and there. I'm saying it's the year of Nicotiana, and some people pronounce it Nicotina. I like Nicotiana, so I'm just going to pronounce it that way. And I think it's a great smelling pollinator magnet, and it is, and it especially attracts beautiful moths. And those moths, that's why I have such great pictures of moths, is partly to do with Nicotiana. And it also smells delicious. It's a night blooming flower that gets no respect. So I went to Hudson Valley Seeds and I got lavender cloud seeds because that's probably my favorite one, but I'm growing 2 other types too. So there you go.
That's nice. And it'll be a year of Nicotiana in my vegetable garden because those seeds will come up everywhere. And
Is
then
it the white one?
just the white plain alba or whatever. And so
it's beautiful.
I'll transplant those to the ends of the beds and try to keep them somewhat under control. So, but they are beautiful. And
what are you going to say?
So I was going to have my year of, I wanted it to be viola, but I thought, can Dee smack me across the internet?
No, it's not that. In fact, I sent you some links to some viola seeds. Did
you did. You did. Not yet.
And you influenced me. I don't normally grow violas from seed. Normally, I just buy whatever's at the store. But this year, I'm growing 5 different types of violas, all because of you. Well, and they're all blues.
Is that like saying I smoke cigarettes now because you smoke cigarettes, or is it a good thing?
No, I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm actually growing Frizzle Sizzle because you can't buy Frizzle Sizzle here.
So
I thought I'm going to try
my greenhouse will
it's
have plenty of Frizzle Sizzle. She and I both love it.
Here.
Oh,
yeah, you're lucky. You get to just dictate what your greenhouse grows.
I don't dictate. She loves them too, so I'm just very fortunate.
Okay, what year is it going to be since you're not going to do viola?
Well, I'm secretly doing viola.
Oh, okay.
But I
decided last year it would be
viola. Can it? That's okay. Nobody says every year has to be different.
Okay. All right. Sounds great.
Actually, mine's going to be the year of more flowers from seeds because.
Me too.
That's a great thing to do. And
it's cheaper.
It is. It is. I still will buy way too much from the greenhouse around the corner, but I will try to figure out some things that I know she won't have. And, All America Selections did send us a ton of seeds. So I'm going to try to get a bunch of those started. Anyway, I got to get my head around this because as we'll talk next week and the week following, sowing flower seeds, timing is a little bit different. I'm very comfortable with my timing for vegetables, but I got to think about these seeds for flowers.
Flowers are all over the place. And also, we'll discuss that next week. Okay. Shall I do the next quote?
You shall do the next quote.
Sometimes our light goes out, but is blown into flame by another human being. Each of us owes deepest thanks to those who have rekindled this light. Hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering, "It will be happier." Alfred Lord Tennyson.
And then you have an Albert Schweitzer. So did you have 2
Albert
quotes
Schweitzer.
in one?
So I guess we did 2 quotes in one. We did. So the Hope Smiles quote is probably from Albert Schweitzer. I don't know. One of them said it. Albert Schweitzer said one. Alfred Lord Tennyson said the other one. Sometimes when we do this a week ahead, we get ahead of ourselves. So we have 2 quotes there.
But the point is that, the new year, and it's kind of like there's a new light. Everybody loves the idea of a clean slate. And so the new year is sort of that clean slate. You got a brand new calendar.
Sure.
But anyway, our vegetable topic is going back to National Garden Bureau. They always have a year of vegetable, and it is, drum roll again, the year of broccoli. Broccoli.
Which is, I don't think that is that exciting, but okay. And you wrote an article about how to grow broccoli, didn't you?
For Family Handyman, yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I did a bunch of these vegetable ones, so I can't remember which one. But Carol is the queen of Family Handyman articles. I am not, and that's okay. And I said that's okay again. I got to stop. Anyway, Carol has it down.
What? That reminds me. There's some college or whatever that puts out the list of words and phrases that are like banned for the coming year because they're overused.
That would be one of them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it is or not, but I just saw a little snippet and I thought, I got to go look at that list to see which one of those I've been overusing.
which 10 have I been overusing.
So because neither one of us bothers to grow broccoli for a variety of reasons, we decided that we would have our own year of vegetable, and I have chosen to be the year of dark red tomatoes, like black cherry and midnight snack, which All America Selection sent me seeds for.
Black creme.
Black creme I don't have, but I'm talking about dark red cherry tomatoes.
Oh, that's right, because you really only grow cherry tomatoes.
No,
right?
I grow
Mostly.
big ones too, but I do love my cherries.
I like cherry tomatoes for my granddaughter. I think cherry tomatoes are slightly boring, but I grow some every year. Remember the year I only grew yellow ones? That was bad.
Yeah. So for your granddaughter, my great nephew and great nieces, they love the currant tomatoes, which are like the size of, they're the size of a big pea sometimes.
Yeah.
They're just fascinated by those. And so that reminds me, I need to get seeds for them because I always start the seeds and give the plants to my sister. And she might text me and say, "Are you growing those currant tomatoes this year?" I'm like, "Yeah, I will."
For you, darling, for you. I personally love black tomatoes. And one of the reasons I do is they really handle the heat well. And a lot of them came out of Russia. A lot of the genetics and seed saving.
Which is not a
came out
place
of
you
Russia.
think of for heat.
Right, exactly. But for some reason, they do really well in the heat too, like black creme is one of them. And I don't know. I don't know why it works. I'm sure that Craig LaHoulier could tell us all, but I'm not going to ask today.
And Craig wrote that book,
The Epic Tomato.
Epic Tomatoes. We should link to that again because
it's a great book.
I wonder if he's
One of
going
the
to come
best
out
books
with
on
a
the
new
planet.
edition since so many new tomatoes have come on the market.
So he's a member of that group. Oh gosh, and we're just talking off the cuff now, so I don't remember the exact name. But there's a group, and their initials, I want to say, are OSV, and they're a group of people who are working to create better tomatoes. And also, if I remember right, they're also trying to create shorter tomatoes.
Yeah, it's the Dwarf Tomato Project, and they are trying to save seeds. And their caveat for these seeds is they need to be open pollinated heirloom type that anybody could grow and save the seeds.
Right. And so there's a saving the seeds deal. Yeah, he's part of the Dwarf Tomato Project. And I actually bought one of his, and we should link to his website because Craig
We'll link to everything
He's
Craig.
so
We'll link to
nice.
it. Maybe we'll let him know.
Such a
too.
good guy. Also, am I supposed to pick I am. I'm supposed to pick a year of too. Well, you know what? Before I noticed that yours was the year of the black tomato, especially cherry tomatoes, I was going to say tomatoes, but I will say it's the year of the peppers here.
Yes, that is a good
And
one.
and I'm going to say it's the year of both hot and mild chili type peppers because I really don't like, bell peppers. I don't like to grow them. I like to eat them. They're fine. But I really like chili peppers. I like the thin-walled peppers, and then I freeze them and use them all year long, and they're fabulous.
That is fabulous. Okay, so that is our vegetable topic. We want to thank National Garden Bureau for providing this information, these topics. And so we'll link to their website as well so you can read about all of these. And they really do have excellent information out there.
They do. If you need to research information. Also, my tomato seeds I bought some of the different ones that are like weirdly open pollinated and stuff just for fun.
Okay.
Your turn to do the quote.
Well, before we do that quote,
Yeah.
did you resolve last year to grow fewer varieties, or was that me?
No, it was me. I
How's
still am
that?
growing fewer
Okay.
so far. It may not happen though. I really like tomatoes.
Are fewer and actual fewer maybe two completely different things?
It might be.
All right, here's the quote. You don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. Just get people to stop reading them. Read, people, read.
And who said that?
Ray Bradbury.
My favorite author of all time. I love Ray
Really?
Bradbury. I think he's brilliant.
I don't know who my favorite author of all time is, but I will say this. We decided to talk about our favorite books, and I put a book down and talked about it, but you have no notes, so I guess I will go first.
You go first and then I'll think about it. But you know what? I agree with you on this selection.
So I think the gardening book that I most enjoyed in 2022, and I think it was actually published in 2021, is The Chef's Garden by Farmer Lee Jones. And it is probably the most expensive book that I bought last year at like $60 full retail price. But so much good information. And even if I don't use a single recipe out of there, because it's chock full of recipes, just the growing and culture information and just the positive feel of the book is what I love.
Yeah. And we learned about new vegetables because of that book. And we learned about, well, for example, we learned about winter radishes versus summer radishes versus spring radishes, which was eye-opening for me.
Yes.
I had never thought about it. That book is my favorite vegetable gardening book that we read this year.
Do you have a favorite flower gardening book that we read?
Yes, and I don't have the title in my head since I didn't write it down, so you're going to help me with it. It's the Tropical Houseplant book, the one that our friend
Tropical
wrote.
Plants and How to Love Them.
Yes.
By Marianne Wilburn. That book is also from 2021, but we read it in 2022.
Right. I love that book.
I think that's going to go down as a classic in some ways.
Here's why I like it. It has excellent information. Marianne knows her plants. She actually listens to our podcast now, which is a thrill. It's full of humor.
Oh, it's the best ever.
And that's what made me love it. And I've actually given it to young people that I know. Listen to me, I sound 1,000 years old. But people I know who are just starting out, who love houseplants, I give them copies because it is full of humor and it also lets you not be perfect.
Exactly.
Because remember the part about summer romances?
Yeah, it gives you permission to break ties with that plant and send it to the compost pile rather than trying to baby it through the winter. Like it's all going to work out in the spring, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to turn to mush.
Yeah,
so,
and it
cut
might.
Your losses.
And as for, I started this one in 2022 because I see that you said that you recall fondly the Aunt Dimity series.
I did. I look back at my Goodreads profile, and there's a lot of the gardening books that I read enough of them, but I didn't actually put them on Goodreads for some reason. I tend to put more the fiction books. But the Aunt Dimity series, 2022 was the year of Aunt Dimity, and also the year of Barbara Pym.
I love Barbara Pym, and I like Aunt Dimity.
Although Barbara Pym books are really, when you read them, they're really depressing.
They're kind of dark.
You need an antidote to those. You need to read a fun, flippant little book like Aunt Dimity's series of cozy mysteries with a capital C for cozy.
Yeah, they are definitely that, with a little ghostliness mixed in too, so that's kind of fun. So that brings me to what I'm reading right now, which is East of Eden through the Well-Read Mom group. And East of Eden, when I first started it, I was like, oh, good Lord, he's spending way too much time talking about rocks. But now I'm over halfway through, and it is fabulous, and I understand why it's a classic, and just the characterization is amazing by today's standards. Having said that, I was reading Father Goins, who's a friend of mine. He's a local priest. I read something he wrote on Facebook yesterday, and he said that he's going to try to read 12 novels this year. And the reason he's going to try to read 12 is because as we age, it gets harder to read novels. It is harder on our brain to do creative thinking, and it's much easier to read nonfiction. And I think, and he had read that somewhere, he didn't say where, but I think it's true because it's really easy for me to read nonfiction now. It's a little harder to get into the worlds of Aunt Dimity or Barbara Pym or East of Eden, which is John Steinbeck. But once you sit yourself down and do it, give yourself an hour every day, it's fabulous, and it's rich with information about human nature.
And I did get my copy of Miss Wilmot's Ghost, which is about a gardener from the past in England. And I just started reading it, and by golly, Gardener's World had a segment on her.
They did. And the winter thing.
Yeah, and I watched part of that, and so I have a little bit of idea what the whole story is going to be about. But Miss Wilmot's Ghost is a thicker book than I had imagined, so I'm working on that. And then there's some books coming out in January that I'm pretty excited to be getting. So anyway, we'll have a lot more books, a lot more gardening books in 2023.
Right. But you know what? Women should not live by gardening books alone. We should read all kinds of stuff.
That is the truth of the matter.
Are you ready to move on to our dirt and the quote?
I am.
Okay. So this is where our Lord Tennyson thing should have gone. Hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering, it will be happier. That's the one by Alfred Lord Tennyson. So what happened was we were moving quotes around. And so that's how we ended up with double quotes above.
We copied instead of cut.
Our dirt you found, and then you had me send it to you as a gift because you aren't a subscriber. And I read it too, and I was fascinated by it. So you talk about it first because...
Well, there's an article in the New York Times, and I found it via the blog Garden Rant. It's called They Fought the Lawn, and the Lawn's Done. And so it's about a couple in Maryland who had had planted a lot of native plants in their what normally would be a front lawn for years. And then they started getting letters from the homeowners association that there were complaints actually from the guy next door.
The one guy next door was just furious with them. Let's be real.
They needed to clean it up, blah, blah, blah. And they thought, you know what? No, we're not going to clean it up. And they ended up getting a lawyer. And I don't remember all the particulars. We put this down 2 weeks ago.
It cost them $80,000.
It did.
I remember that particular.
The result is there's changes in the law in Maryland, and you can have natural landscapes. You can't just let your lawn go to weeds.
Right.
But you can have natural landscapes. And they compromised the neighbor. I think they have what they call a neat strip along the property line with him. And it reminds me...
And along the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It was also along the sidewalk. Because, things that are in a native lawn, and they had shrubs and trees too, small trees. I mean, it didn't look bad. But when they grow over the sidewalk, people can't walk by.
That's true.
So that's why you have to have a strip. Okay, keep going.
Well, I was going to say my brother and in a long time ago had a house next to a lot that somebody had built on the lot because it was a cul-de-sac there. And I might have told this story. Their front yard was going to be the people's backyard was going to be like right against their front yard. It's going to be awkward. So he had the means to buy the lot, which was wooded. And the homeowners association, that was their one stipulation. You can leave it wooded, just plant a 10-foot sort of mowed easement beside the sidewalk so that it looks like it's maintained as part of the property. So that woods is still there, and, it's a great place for wildlife and wildflowers and all those kinds of good things.
Right, and insects and just all kinds of things.
Nobody said, come mow down all these trees and, put a proper lawn through here. So that's kind of the new law in Maryland is you can't make them have a lawn.
And I also want to say that this couple, from what I read in the article, it wasn't like they were belligerent or anything. They tried really hard to do the things that the homeowners association asked for up to a point, and then they told them they had to get rid of it completely, and that's when they said no. And they did a bunch of research, and because of their research and also their work with Doug Tallamy, who's the king of we should make our lawns more natural than they are, they were able to actually prove that we need more natural plants and more natural growing conditions than what we have now. Because 78%, most of our lawns are just monocultures. And you and I have talked about this before. And so it's just fascinating. And what also changed was that the legislator who introduced the law, he changed his lawn too. And he was firmly in the I love my lawn camp until they brought him all this research, and he did some interviews, and he was like, "Oh gosh, we need to do a better job," because most of the land in the United States is owned by individuals.
Yeah.
So there you go.
On Christmas Day, both my niece, where they tore up the backyard to redo the house, she's like, "Where can I get that Dutch white clover to put in with the grass seed?" And my sister, they have a dog that's destroyed their backyard. She's like, "Where do I get this Dutch white clover to put in with my grass seed?" Which is a nice start. So
it is a nice start.
Mixing, and I've put Dutch white clover all through my backyard. Now the front, I tend to not disrupt the neighbor sensibilities, I guess, and let things be a little bit more monoculture. But in that back, no ma'am. I got clover, dandelions, I got everything. I still mow it. But anyway,
Yes.
it's an interesting article and worth the time reading. And we will include the link, which should allow anybody to read it.
Yes, I think I gave a gift link, so it should work. You get the next quote.
Kindness is like snow. It beautifies everything it covers. Khalil Gibran.
Gibran.
Did you have a white Christmas?
Did we?
Or just cold?
We got a little snow on, I want to say Christmas Eve. So it was still here because it was cold.
Yeah,
it was
that's same
just
with
a
us.
tiny amount.
It was
Yeah,
enough to
who
cover
cares?
things, but not enough that you had, and it blew around so much you didn't have to shovel. So that was good.
Ours was so dry because the air was so dry, it just blew around.
So let's talk about rabbit holes.
You want to go first? Yours have got more of one.
Well, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole around Christmas time to find the latest lost lady of garden writing, a woman named Mildred Ludi, and that's a Swiss name. She and her husband wrote a book called The Christmas Rose, and it's all of 44 pages. It's in my
Cute.
stack of Christmas books. But she and Arthur owned a nursery in Ohio somewhere, and they would travel around speaking all over about perennials and different things. And so I was able to use Ancestry.com and newspapers.com to figure out not only that they had a nursery and what road it was on in the town somewhere near Cleveland, but that they likely retired to Tucson, where he died a few years before her, and she got into an art group, and they have paintings, and they would have little art displays around Tucson. So, of course, I
Love
went
that.
looking for a piece of art by Mildred, could not find anything. But anyway,
Bummer.
I think this is the only book that she and her husband wrote, and there was a poem in there that I decided that Mildred wrote the poetry for no reason other than why not.
Cool.
So that was my little tiny rabbit hole.
So my rabbit hole was my dissatisfaction with my seed photo album that I've used for the last 2 years. And I already kind of talked about it above, but we can talk a little bit more about seed storage next week because I did some research on other types of seed storage and made some notes. So that was my rabbit hole for this week.
Good. That'll prepare us for next week. Now, let's talk about our garden commissions.
Yeah. So I'm going to start my onion and leek seeds this week. It's pretty much time. I got to clear out some pots in the greenhouse if I'm going to do them in there, which I probably will because you want them to stay cool as you germinate them because they're cool weather crops. And I'm going to try to grow leeks. I talked to my friend Karen last night, and she said that she did it last year and it worked. So I'm going to try. And then I might order some of those seed sleeve sheets from the Big A to further organize my seeds because, of course, when I was going through my seeds, I bought more seeds.
Well, and so we should provide a link to whatever seed thing you buy.
Well, we'll do that next week.
Okay.
Because I already put it on there in our notes.
That's good.
On
So
seed storage.
my commission, I do want to, when it's not so wet, I want to walk around and see if there's damage from the frigid temps. And then things, I'm not sure what damage I would expect to find. I did notice that some of the hellebores looked a little rugged, but
Mine are looking pretty bad. I got to trim them back. That's the next thing we're going to do, too, this week on Friday is trim them back. Clear off everything. So I can actually see the hellebores this year. I would like to be able to see them.
Yeah.
Bloom.
And so I did notice that the big bad weather came in on the winter solstice. So does that mean we're going to have a mild spring solstice? I don't know. If winter comes
hope
in
so.
like a lion, does it go out like a lamb, or does that only apply to spring
In March.
or March?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to place and I'll do air quotes, final seed orders. And then I think I'm going to pot up my Lily of the Valley pips that are in the refrigerator and take some cuttings from the African blue basil and maybe sow some more microgreens because they're doing pretty well.
They're delicious. It was funny. We went to eat at Mahogany last night, which is a really nice steakhouse in Oklahoma City with some friends. And they said that they had micro basil in a salad. And I was like, oh, microgreens.
Yeah, you never did sow yours, did you?
No, they're sitting on the table here. I'll do it. I'll do it today.
Yeah,
I promise.
That's what you promised 2 weeks ago. Anyway, let's wrap this thing up. We have chattered along. Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every Wednesday, except for last week, at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you listen to Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review that helps us get noticed by others. Could you also share our podcast with your friends? Word of mouth is still the best way to get the word out there.
And be sure and check out our notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own websites.
And if you're smart, you'll subscribe to our free Substack newsletter, The Garden Angelist at Substack.com, which is also linked to in our show notes, and it's the best thing we put out.
Whoops, I scrolled too far. I'm supposed to wrap this thing up. Where are we, Dee?
You're supposed to say, and if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you want to buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing.
That was lovely. That was well said. It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Bye until next week, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Carol.
Bye, Dee.
Bye.